Welcome to Mr. Disturbing. Tonight, we're plunging into the dark heart of the Appalachians with some truly unsettling true horror stories. That'll keep you up all night. If you're brave enough, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next descent into fear. My name is Thomas Kearns. I'm 44 years old, and I work as a maintenance technician for a short-line railroad company that services abandoned coal routes in eastern Kentucky and southern West Virginia. Most of what I do is simple: walking miles of disused track, tightening bolts, checking for landslides, reporting weather damage. 90% of the rails I inspect haven't seen a train in decades. They're ghost lines, but they still need eyes on them for liability reasons. It's lonely work. I hike alone, carry a toolkit, a satellite phone, a flare. I don't get reception most of the time, but I'm used to the quiet. I prefer it. One stretch of line, about 9 miles outside a place called Harlow Creek, hasn't left my head since last fall. It was part of a route they called the Devil's Backbone, a set of rails laid in the 1930s through a gorge so narrow the cliffs felt like they were pressing together. It's one of the oldest, most remote routes on our books. The company hadn't sent anyone down there in 3 years. The report said a section needed assessment after heavy rains caused a minor rock slide. I was dropped off by ATV just past sunrise and told I'd be picked up at the other end by dusk. I didn't expect to see much. Just trees, rotting ties, maybe some rusted hardware. But something felt wrong the moment I stepped onto that line. The air had weight, not heat, not pressure, just a presence. I walked with my head down, boots crunching over gravel and rust. No birds, no wind, just the occasional drop of water falling from the cliffs above. After an hour, I came to a stretch where the metal rails had buckled slightly, nothing major, just old steel giving in to the earth and bent inward, like the track was curling into itself. I marked it, took a photo, and kept walking. That's when I found the first object. A boot. Old. Split down the side. Resting perfectly between the rails. Not tossed, not abandoned, placed. No sign of its pair. No sign of anything else. I didn't touch it, just kept moving. After another half mile, the cliff started to close in. The walls of the gorge narrowed to maybe 8 feet across. The light dimmed. I didn't like the way the sound changed. My footsteps came back to me too fast. Like something was standing close behind. I kept checking over my shoulder but saw nothing, just trees and stone. Until I didn't. Until I saw something else. A figure. Far ahead, at the bend. Too far to make out detail, just standing between the rails, motionless, facing my way. My first thought was it might be another worker, though we never doubled up on these jobs. I raised my hand. No response. I shouted. The echo came back too quickly. When I looked again, the figure was gone. I walked faster after that, tried to shake it off. I passed a second object not long after, this time a pair of glasses. One lens cracked, the other missing. Same thing, placed neatly on the rail like someone wanted them found. I took a photo, marked the GPS, kept moving. I started to feel like I wasn't walking forward anymore, like the track was looping. The trees around me didn't change. The ground stayed flat, and the shadows stayed wrong. Then came the third object. A hard hat. Our company's logo. I picked it up, checked the sticker inside. Dated 2007. The initials matched a tech I remembered from orientation years ago. A guy who vanished during a winter job near Pike County. They said he fell into a ravine, that his body was never recovered. I dropped the hat. My hands were shaking now. I radioed in, but only got static. I didn't know if I'd been walking for 1 hour or 5, and when I looked ahead, the track ended. Just stopped, like it had never been completed. Steel and ties buried in dirt. Beyond that, trees, dense, silent, and standing just beyond the edge was the same figure, closer now, still facing me. I didn't move at first. I just stood there, staring at the figure. It hadn't taken a step, hadn't shifted an inch. It looked human in shape, tall, narrow shoulders, arms long at its sides, but something about it was off. The proportions were wrong. It was too still, too symmetrical. Its head didn't tilt, its clothes didn't shift. The longer I stared, the more I felt like it wasn't a person at all, but a shape meant to appear like one. The way a scarecrow looks like a man only when you don't stare too long. I blinked once, and it was gone. No sound, no movement, just vanished. I turned around, thought maybe I'd head back, call it in as impassable, but when I looked behind me, the rail wasn't there. I stood exactly where the metal had ended, but now there was no sign it had ever existed at all. No ties, no gravel, no rails, just a faint path through the brush, barely wide enough for a man. I spun slowly, looked both directions, forward, into the trees where the figure had been, behind, into a trail that didn't exist minutes before. I picked the way I knew best, forward. I stepped off the rail bed and into the woods, every branch brushing against me like breath. The trees leaned overhead. The light didn't change. It just faded, like walking deeper underwater. And then I found the tunnel. Not one I recognized. Not on any map. Not on any plan I'd reviewed. It was carved directly into the ridge, mouth wide and black. The stone around it was old, older than the line, older than the timber, covered in moss but not from rain. The growth was dry, brittle, like it hadn't been alive in years. The tunnel was only wide enough for a single track, but there was no track inside, just the remnants of wood, half-rotted, buried in dirt. The walls were covered in etchings, not graffiti, not names, just marks. Spirals, crosses, circles within circles. Some were shallow, some deep, like someone had carved with a knife and kept cutting long after the stone stopped giving. I should have turned back again, but the tunnel pulled me in. It was cool inside, too cool. The kind of air you only feel in cellars and old caves. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was thick, like I was walking through fog I couldn't see. I kept my hand on the wall, kept walking. My flashlight started to flicker, and then I saw them. More objects. Personal things. A belt buckle, a watch, a coil of measuring tape. All half buried in the dirt along the sides of the tunnel. All rusted, all familiar. Tools I'd seen on other techs. One still had the initials CR carved into it. A guy who'd gone missing in 2016 after taking a route in Western Virginia. I never met him, but I remembered the bulletin. They said he was probably attacked by a bear, but no one ever found the body. Or the gear. Until now. I kept walking. Couldn't stop. The tunnel curved slightly, then opened into a chamber I didn't expect. Not a room, not a platform, just a space, carved into the stone, wider than it should have been. In the middle of that space was the rail, just one piece, bent, twisted into a spiral that disappeared into the ground like it was being swallowed, and standing beside it, closer now, was the figure. Still, facing me. No face, no sound, just waiting. I turned off the flashlight, closed my eyes, counted 10 seconds. When I looked again, the figure was gone. But something else had changed. The spiral of rail was longer, deeper, still slowly twisting into the stone. I backed out, step by step, no footsteps behind me, but I could hear breathing now. Not mine, not fast, just steady, deep, and close. I ran. I ran for what felt like hours, but time had stopped meaning anything inside that tunnel. The light didn't change. The air didn't shift. It just stayed cold, still and thick, like I was running through a sealed hallway buried in the mountain's spine. I don't remember turning corners, but the path curved. I don't remember climbing, but the ground sloped upward. And eventually, finally, I saw daylight. A sliver at first, then wider. I burst out of the tunnel mouth and fell to my knees on stone, gasping for breath, blinking into the gray light. I looked behind me. The tunnel entrance was gone. Just stone, no markings, no arch, like it had sealed itself the moment I stepped out. I stood slowly, turned around, tried to figure out where I was, but the terrain didn't match anything I remembered. It wasn't the gorge, wasn't part of the backbone line. Just pine trees and old growth stretching in every direction. No sign of my trail, no sign of the old rail bed, no ATV tracks, just me, and a silence so deep it felt alive. I wandered for hours before I found something, a clearing, small. At the center was a pile of rusted rail, twisted into a spiral, familiar, too familiar. And at its edge, half buried in the dirt, was a hard hat. Same logo as mine, same color. I picked it up, looked inside. My initials, TK. But I was still wearing mine. I took it off, compared the two. Identical. Same scratches, same sticker. One of them shouldn't exist. I dropped them both. The wind picked up then. First time I'd felt it in hours. It came from the trees, and with it, the sound, that breathing again. But not from one place, from everywhere. The trees exhaled, the dirt sighed. The whole forest was breathing now, like it had lungs. And at the edge of the clearing, the figure. Again. This time, closer than ever. Just 20 feet away. I could see now. It wasn't wearing clothes. Its surface was bark, its arms too long, no face, just a deep hollow where its head should be, like a tunnel into a skull. It didn't move, but I felt something pressing into my thoughts. A weight, like it was asking me something without speaking. I turned. I walked, not ran, walked, as if anything faster would trigger something worse. I don't remember how I made it out. Don't remember calling for pickup. But I woke the next morning in a ranger's shack 2 counties away. My boots were caked in black moss. My radio was crushed. I had bruises on both shoulders like I'd been grabbed. The company took my statement, told me I'd gotten lost. That a weather front had scrambled the GPS, that hallucinations weren't uncommon in high-stress wilderness situations. They offered leave. I never went back, but it didn't end. Every few months, I find something, a piece of rail in a place it doesn't belong, spiral-shaped burn marks on fallen trees, a hard hat on my porch. Sometimes around 3 a.m., I wake up to find my boots wet with dew, pine needles in my room. And once, just once, I heard a sound under the floorboards, a long, slow drag, like steel on stone. I know what I saw out there. I know that some tracks aren't laid for trains, some tunnels weren't carved by men, and some figures aren't meant to be followed. But if you ever walk an abandoned rail line, and it starts to curve in ways it shouldn't, if the metal starts to hum, if the air forgets to move, turn back, while there's still a way to turn at all. My name is Alan Mercer. I'm 52 years old. I've lived in western North Carolina my whole life, just outside Boone. For most of my adult years, I worked as a lineman for a small electric co-op that handles power out to the remote parts of the Appalachian backwoods. I've been up towers in snow, crossed downed bridges, walked 6 miles through storm-blasted hollows to fix a line nobody else wanted to touch. I've seen lightning fry a substation and once watched a bear pull a junction box off the side of a cabin. I thought I'd seen everything these hills could throw at a man. I was wrong. Back in October of 2019, we got a call about a power outage near a dead-end stretch of gravel road running through an area most maps didn't even name. The only reference anyone had for it was Witch's Hollow. I'd heard the name before. Heard the stories, too. About people going missing, about the trees never growing right there, about dogs refusing to enter the woods past a certain point. Locals treated it like a joke, but I'd noticed something. None of the old-timers ever laughed when they heard it mentioned. The call was logged as a non-urgent residential outage, supposedly affecting a single cabin that hadn't had any issues in over a decade. The strange part was the name on the account, W. Boone, a name we'd flagged as inactive since the 1980s. The records had no phone number, no payment history, no recent usage. It should have been scrubbed from the system, but the request had come in through our automated dispatch, time-stamped at 3:01 a.m. I volunteered to go. Didn't think much of it. Figured it was a data glitch or maybe some squatter trying to tap into an old line. I packed my tools, filled the truck, and left around 7 a.m. The road was barely passable after the first few miles. Erosion had eaten away most of the shoulders. Trees leaned overhead like broken crosses. I followed the coordinates into the hollow, GPS flickering every few minutes, signal dropping in and out. At one point, the radio popped and squealed, even though no one was broadcasting. Static. Then silence. Then a voice. Just for a second. A whisper, too fast to understand. And then it was gone. I kept going. The gravel gave way to dirt, then to something older, like stone crushed down by centuries of footsteps. No more tire ruts, just a path. I rounded a bend and saw it. The cabin, hidden in the trees like it had grown there. Wood blackened with age, chimney leaning, roof thick with moss. But the porch light was on, bright, steady, powered. I parked, stepped out slowly. No wind, no birds. The air was still, heavy, like the world had hit pause. I approached the porch. Every board creaked too loud. There was no sound inside, no movement, but the meter was spinning. Power was flowing. I followed the line around the back and saw the breaker box, old, rusted, patched with wire that hadn't been sold since the 60s. It shouldn't have been running, but it was. I opened the panel to check for faults, and that's when I saw it. A symbol, carved into the inside of the metal door, a circle with an X through the middle, and 4 smaller lines branching off. Not a manufacturer mark, not graffiti, hand-cut, deep, like it was meant to last. I turned to look at the trees behind me and saw someone watching. He was standing just beyond the tree line, still, facing me, his shape barely visible between the trunks. I couldn't make out details, just the outline of a tall man in a brimmed hat. No movement, no sound, just standing there, watching. I blinked once. He was gone. Like he'd never been there. I should have left right then. But I didn't. I told myself it was my imagination, a trick of the light. Maybe a shadow. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I walked back around the cabin and knocked once on the door, just to be sure. My knuckles echoed too loudly against the wood. I waited. No answer. I knocked again. Nothing. The window beside the door was caked with grime, but I could see inside. Barely. A single chair. A fireplace. No light beyond the bulb above the porch. I stepped back. I didn't want to go in. Something about that place felt old, in a way that had nothing to do with time. Like the walls remembered things better left forgotten. I decided to finish the job. Checked the pole nearby. Line was sagging, but intact. Transformer humming. Everything looked functional. I climbed up to inspect the tap. The wire was wrapped in something. Thin, pale. At first I thought it was plastic, but when I got close, it wasn't. It was hair. Long strands, wound tightly around the metal, tangled, weathered, sticking out from under the clamp like it had grown there. I didn't touch it. Just took a photo with my work phone and climbed down. When I turned around, the porch light was off. I hadn't heard it click. Just off. Silent. I looked at the cabin again. Something about the windows felt wrong now, like they were too dark or too deep. I got into my truck and tried the radio again. Nothing. I checked my phone. Dead. Not low battery, dead. Screen wouldn't turn on. It had been at 80% an hour earlier. I started the truck, turned back the way I came, drove faster. But after about 10 minutes, the road began to look off. The trees on either side leaned differently. The ditches seemed shallower. I kept going, past a large stump on the left, one I didn't remember seeing on the way in. Another 5 minutes and I passed it again, the same stump. Same broken bark, same pale fungus on the side. I was looping. I slammed the brakes, checked the road behind me, flat, silent, no turns, no forks, just a straight path through the woods. I turned around, kept driving. 5 minutes later, the same stump, the same patch of gravel. I was stuck. I got out, walked a little, listened. The forest was too still again. No birds, no wind, no life. Just that same heavy quiet pressing down from above. Then I heard it, a creak, like a slow step on an old wooden floor. I turned toward the sound. It came again, closer, from the trees. I didn't see him at first, just movement, a slow figure stepping out from the brush. He was tall, wrong tall, like his proportions had been stretched. His hat too wide, his arms too long, his face missing, just smooth skin where features should be. I ran, back to the truck, slammed the door, locked it, but when I looked out the windshield, the road was gone. No gravel, no stump, just forest. Trees where there shouldn't be trees, no path forward, no path back. And from the woods, I could hear it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer. The last thing I saw before the light failed completely was the porch light turning back on. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up in the truck with the windows fogged and the smell of old wood smoke in the air. Not fresh smoke, the kind that clings to burned timber years after the fire is gone. I checked the clock. It was blinking, all zeros. My phone was still dead. The key turned, but the engine wouldn't start. Just a click. Then silence. The forest outside was gray, wet, colorless. I stepped out slowly. Every leaf on the ground looked waterlogged, wilted, like the woods had been flooded and drained. I turned toward where the road had been and saw something else. A set of poles, 6 of them, spaced evenly, leading in a slow curve through the trees. Power poles, but not modern. These were the old kind. Creosote-soaked wooden crossbars, frayed glass insulators. Wires long gone, the same kind I remembered seeing in photos from the 1940s. I followed them, one after another, step by step. The trees grew darker, taller. The ground turned soft beneath my boots. And then I heard it again, the creaking. Not footsteps this time, not branches. It was the sound of rope, straining slowly. A rise, then a groan. A pause, then another. I stopped walking. The poles ended at a small clearing. At the center stood a single structure, wooden, leaning, covered in black moss, a gallows. No body, just the beam, the noose, and the sound. The rope swinging on its own in wind that didn't exist. Behind it, just beyond the tree line, I saw the figure again, the man in the brimmed hat, closer this time. I could see more now. His coat was torn. His hands hung like they were tied. His head tilted toward me, but not like he was curious, like he was waiting. I turned and ran, through the trees, through the brush. Every direction looked the same. No poles, no road, only forest. Then the wind picked up, and the whispering started, low. Thousands of voices speaking at once, too fast to understand, too layered to separate. It came from the trees, from the ground, from inside my chest. And in between the voices I heard one word, clear, slow. My name, Alan, spoken like it was being remembered, not called. I stumbled forward, branches clawing at my arms, the sound rising, my vision narrowing. And then, light, bright, sudden. I was back at the cabin. The porch light was on again, the meter still spun. The door was slightly open, and inside, I saw something moving. Not walking, floating, a shape, thin, shifting. I backed away. My legs barely worked. I dropped my tools, turned, and this time, the road was there, just like it had been before. Gravel, tire tracks, My truck sitting perfectly where I'd left it. No fog, no darkness, just normal. Like nothing had ever happened. I got in and drove. Didn't stop until I was 3 counties away. Didn't speak of it. Didn't file a report. Just wrote no access a private line and closed the job. But a week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, no handwriting, just a photo. Black and white. Faded. It showed the gallows, the clearing, and standing beneath the noose was me, staring straight at the camera. I don't remember the picture being taken, but I know where it came from. I see that hat sometimes now, in crowds, on sidewalks, in reflections. And every night at exactly 3:01 a.m., the light outside my front porch turns on. Even though the bulb has been dead for months,